How much time do you have on the day of the meeting?
I think you got it.
This is, you guys might have already met Joe, previously Councilman
I think you have almost like half an hour.
I think you spoke earlier in your thing. So hey everybody, real quick, the community garden that you see right here, as far back as the city records can tell, this community garden predates the Victory Gardens in the city of Cleveland. The city of Cleveland at one time in the 1930s and 40s had a pretty intense municipal policy with regard to community gardens. Ironically, about 10 years ago, this building, which was sold to us, sold to neighborhood housing services, was owned by the CDC in the neighborhood, Ohio City. They probably took about a 50% discount on what they could have sold for this. The market values in this community are very hot right now. This is a lot of property, a lot of people want to buy it. Obviously, the Neighborhood Development Group Ohio City and its leadership felt that affordable housing in the land trust is an important enough value that they didn't get as much money as they could for it. The ironic thing is, 10 years ago, a developer wanted to sever this building in two and create two market rate condos. But the only way they could really justify it with their financing, and the only way they could get people who wanted to buy the condos to get into it, was to create off-street parking over here in almost like a private courtyard. This is a city land bank lot, but at the time, back in 2006 or so, 2005, it was zoned residential. So the developer, who I'm not going to name because they're still around, told the gardeners that the city was evicting them. What happened was the garden became absolutely overgrown. It looked like a disaster. We had issues with vermin. We had issues with unsightliness, and people in the neighborhood said to me, because I was the councilman back then, it would be better if it were a parking lot than if it was an overgrown garden. There's a lot of self-actualization happening. We didn't know what was happening until we found out what the developer who wanted to purchase the building but never cemented the deal was doing. The garden moved one block over to West 47th Street, and so we said in order to prevent this thing from losing the families who were in here because it was affordable, we wanted to zone this as a garden. So we did what you do. We called Portland, Oregon, we called Seattle, and we called Boston for their zoning codes, and we asked them for the section with the municipal garden zoning, and they didn't have it. So we wrote it. We took it to the Planning Commission, and they all laughed at us. And they said, why would you ever zone something the city owns? Why wouldn't you just let it be a garden until those dirty words in planning came out, a higher and better use came out? This thing was an awesome crime repellent, property value enhancer, nutrition provider for the neighborhood. We think that's pretty much a higher and best use. So we wrote the zoning code, we got it through the Planning Commission, they laughed at us. And we think this is the first garden that was zoned as a community garden in the state of Ohio. We could be something in a national side too, we're not sure. But we know for a fact it was that in Ohio. And basically what happened is now this. This is a zone garden. If a council person ever decides they want to change the zoning code in the city of Cleveland requires that we notify people. So now we've got to notify all the neighbors around here who happen to be participants in the garden. I can tell you politically that's going to go over like a lead balloon. Our hope is that the families who move in here will be part of the growing movement in Cleveland. We have a growing refugee family community in Cleveland. We've got a lot of families here from Bhutan. We have a lot of families here from Burma. We've got growing families from South Sudan and Darfur. And we have families from Bosnia. We're hoping that the four families that eventually move in here will utilize the free garden space. And the mayor has already said that we can use one of the stands at the West Side Market for the produce zone. So we're trying to figure out how to create a sustainable agriculture, pro-community, pro-land trust issue. I will tell you that this is the first land trust project that the city of Cleveland has funded in about 10 years that I know of. And to get it through our community development department was a challenge, not because we didn't meet the income criteria, but because they didn't recognize that it was like a foreign agent. And because of Anne Misak and Pete Van Leer and Amy Kulishek and all the folks who were involved, we actually were able to get it through. The ironic thing is that Anne Misak, who's head of the land trust in Cleveland now, was one of the authors on the urban agriculture legislation that created a permanent garden stand in the first place. So it's kind of funny how things kind of come around in a way. And what we really believed, and I think you guys all believe, is that housing justice is social justice, is racial justice, is food justice. And so we're kind of hoping that we can really turn this around and make it super productive for all the people who are going to be living here, but specifically for the families who will be residing next door.
So you were, you secured funding for this building. I don't know if we've already mentioned that, but you got some home funds.
Yeah, the city of Cleveland participated, and with Mayor Jackson's leadership and vision, we were able to get $320,000 for this in a grant in order to help some of the costs, which is nowhere near what it needs. But I think everyone was inspired by the land trust model, and so once we got past people's unfamiliarity, we were able to do it. Our hope is that Matt Burgess will do such a good job, and the land trust will be such a phenomenal steward that this is the pilot for future pipeline funding from the city of Cleveland project.